Hey everyone, welcome back. So this video, we are going to actually travel down to Kennesaw, Georgia to Peach State Lumber. They are one of my biggest suppliers of my hardwood. We're going to go meet Eric Neal. He is the manager of the retail side of that location. They have a huge warehouse, and I'm going to hopefully give you a tour of it at the end of it. But we're going to go down there and maybe get Eric to answer some questions I commonly get, and I know he commonly gets, about buying from an actual hardwood dealer as opposed to buying from your big box stores. So this should be fun. Let's go. Okay, everybody, we're here with Eric Neal at Peach State Lumber in Kennesaw, Georgia. This video is really kind of like the top 5 questions that both myself and he sees while he's here working the retail side. He is the retail manager here at Peach State Lumber. So let's get into it. Sure. One of the biggest questions I get a lot of the times, Eric, is people ask me, what in the world does FAS mean? What does that actually mean?
We get a lot of the fast lumber. Do you have any fast walnut? And it's not fast. It is an abbreviation. It's first and seconds. It's referring to the grading of the lumber. So a good portion of what we sell here is first and second grade. That's our highest grade lumber. It's the highest hardwood grade you can get. There's a book that's probably 2 inches thick that explains all of the grading. The NHLA regulates all the grading. So they put this book out, and it lays out for every species. There's a different criteria. There's a different set of rules to look at for each one. So it's not as simple as you would think it would be, but there's a lot that goes into the grading. But we do carry the highest quality hardwood, which is first and seconds. We do carry a 2 common and a 1 common as well. But again, that just goes into what they consider first quality and second quality versus the common grades.
Oh, perfect. Awesome, man. Okay, another question I get a lot, kind of going on those quality lines and finishes, I guess you could say, is what's the difference between S1, or S2, S3, S4 lumber? What does that mean?
Yeah, so that's getting into the milling of the lumber. So the lumber can come in rough cut, which is just straight from the mill. They've ran it through their mill. You're just getting rough edges. Semi-dimensional, it's not going to be exact cuts at all. We do get skip planed, we get ripped on one edge, we get a little bit of everything from different mills. But what we do here in house is we can actually mill to your specific dimensions. Here we carry most of our lumber here in retail is going to be S3S. That means that it's been surfaced on both faces and that one edge has been straight line ripped for you. That 4th edge hasn't been touched, so that's S3. S4 would be what you find at most of the big box stores. They're going to have all 4 sides have been milled for you. So they got 2 faces clean, both edges are ripped, and those are ripped to a dimension, usually a 1x4, 1x6, usually nominal dimensions. But you can get it, it's a la carte. Here at Peach State, we order, you can do 1 rip only or no rip. We can just do S2, and that's just the 2 faces. What we call R1E is rip 1 edge. That gives you that S3. And we do have the capability here as well to do S4, which is where we have a dual gang rip that'll rip both sides to a specified dimension. So it's a lot can go into it, but it all has to do with the milling. So the S tells you how many faces or sides have been touched. So S1, 1 side's been touched. S2, 2 sides have been touched, and so on.
Oh, great answer. Touch on one thing you mentioned. You mentioned skip planing. I have had a couple of questions on that in the past. What's the difference between skip planing and what some of us know as just regular planing? What's the difference?
Yeah, so skip planing, some of the mills do it, and we do it here in house. It's where you're literally just kissing the board enough to expose the grain and get the roughness out of the board. Because a lot of times, especially things like dark walnut, people want all the heartwood, they want the really nice grain figuring, but you can't see that sometimes in the rough. So when you skip dress it, it kind of exposes that grain and lets you see more of the character, more of the sapwood and things like that. It just gives you a better view of the board, basically.
Okay, so they'd still have to plane it and surface it themselves.
Absolutely,
when they got it home.
We're touching it the absolute minimum amount with the blade, and our planer does both sides at the same time. So we're skip dressing the bottom and the top, or we can just do one side, and just barely touch it. But unfortunately, with some of the lumber and part of the grading, They grade by the face. So one face might be FAS, the other face might be slightly different.
Exactly. One example here, if you've never seen, this is what we would consider rough cut. This has had nothing done to it except for basically just cut off. This is completely rough cut. This would be what we would consider probably S3 because everything except for one edge here has been actually touched. This one, and this one. And this
side's been straight line ripped.
Yep.
And then I'll give you a reference edge for, say, your table saw or something like that.
Great. Okay, so another question I get a lot, and I'm sure you get a ton here, because when we go to the big box stores, we're looking for 2x4s, 2x10s, 1x's, and we don't know when we walk in here, and all of your stuff is, what is 4/4, 4/4? What are all those? What do those mean?
So it's funny. A lot of people couldn't even explain to you where it came from, but the entire mainline lumber industry does everything in quarters. So everything is sold by quarter. So a 4/4 is you literally reduce the fraction to 1 inch, and so on. So 5/4, 1.25 inches, 8/4 would be 2 inches. So it just refers to the thickness of the board. And that has to do with when it's coming off the saw. So that if you're going to a big box store, you're getting usually 3/4 material. It's not a true 4/4. If you come here and you ask for 4/4 lumber, typically we're going to bring you something like this rough sawn material that's going to be a full 1 inch, and that's a 4/4 board. We do surface, and we'll take it down to a dimension that is appropriate, but that came from a 4/4 board. The quarter system, the best I've found in terms of explanation came from the old sawmills. They actually used a lever system that would move the board, the thicknesses, and each one was a 1/4 inch. So how many quarters was that board? How many clicks was it of the lever?
Oh, interesting.
So 4 clicks, that's 4/4. So that's the best explanation I found. But apparently it's lost to time as to why they started using the 4/4 system.
Well, I learned something today. I had no idea. I did not know that where that came from. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Here's just an example of what kind of he was talking about. These are both 4/4 pieces of lumber. And I just showed you. You can see the difference in thickness between this rough sawn lumber and the one that's been finished. So keep in mind, if you do need a board that is 4/4 or 1 inch thick, you can't start with 4/4 lumber. It's not going to be 1 inch by the time. You want to start with something like 5/4, 6/4,
right.
something.
And that's
like
one
that.
of the big things we'll ask people: are you finishing at 1 inch, or do you need a 1 inch board? So when we're asking about finishing, it's because we know that we need to mill down from a thicker board. So
that makes sense. Just for example, this is what you would call an 8/4 board, and they go up to. I've seen 12/4. Do you do anything more than 12/4?
We've had as thick as 24/4.
That's a heavy piece of lumber right there.
That's a big board. But on average, our thickest boards that we carry are usually 16/4.
Okay.
So 16 4-inch thick in the rough. That's usually the thickest we're going to have here.
Okay. So another question. We're going to get into a complicated one here in a second, but I'll save it for kind of last. But hardwood, one word, hardwood versus hardwood.
Yes. So that's another big one that we get, where people will come in and they're wanting, a soft, a hardwood that's not soft, or they're getting confused by soft maple or something. They don't want a soft wood. And I'm like, no, that's a hardwood. It may be soft, but it's a hardwood. Basswood, for example, basswood is a very soft wood, but it's a hardwood. It's softer than a lot of the softwoods. Softwood and hardwood really is determined by the type of tree it's coming from. So you can think of hardwoods are usually going to be the things you see turn color in the fall. The leaves fall off of them. Those are all your hardwood trees. Those are your oaks, your maples, your all those that have the big broad leaves that change color, fall off the tree and die or almost die in the winter. They grow slower. That's the main characteristics of a hardwood tree. The softwood trees are like your pines with needles and things like that are evergreen. So that's what classifies hardwood versus softwood in terms of a tree. But the lumber itself can range in hardness based on the Janka hardness scale. So you take something like yellow pine is actually harder than basswood, but yellow pine's a softwood.
That's interesting.
So that's where some of the weirdness can come in there. But there is some confusion on customers when they hear things like soft maple. Well, it's not really soft. It's still 800, 900 pounds on the Janka, but it's a hardwood.
Awesome. I'll leave a link to a scale, one of the Janka scales that kind of breaks down all the woods and where they lie on that scale. So we kind of give you an idea of what he's talking about in a graph.
For sure. It can be surprising sometimes when you look at things that are really soft and you're like, oh, that's a hardwood. Yeah. Like balsa wood. It's a hardwood, but it's one of the softest woods you can find in the world.
Exactly. Okay, so here's the elephant in the room, I think. So when we go to a big box store and I look at a 2x4, well, I know that that's actually 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. It's not true. When I come here, I see things like board foot. When I get charged by board foot, not by linear foot or 2x4, 8 foot long, whatever. So explain how to calculate what board foot is.
Yeah. Like you said, when you go to the big box store, you're usually going to buy a board that's got a barcode on the end of it. That doesn't get calculated by board footage or measurements or anything like that. It's just they scan a barcode and it is what it is, sold by the piece. Here, we sell all of our lumber by the volume. So, like you were saying, the board foot calculation is a calculation of volume. It's your width times your length times your thickness. So as we were talking about before with the quarter system, so that quarter system, you have to account for that when you're measuring your boards, and that's where the volume comes in. So if you're using an 8-quarter board, you're going to take your surface area, your width times your length, and then you're going to calculate that times your thickness. And that's where you get your board foot calculation from. And if I don't know if you want to send them a link or show them a link or maybe a calculation that will kind of make it easier to remember, but the way we do it here, we have a tally stick that will help us calculate it, or we can actually do the actual math ourselves. We can measure the board, we measure inches in width, length in feet, and divide that by 12, multiply by the thickness in inches, and that'll give us our total board foot calculation. But we get to cheat with the tally sticks here because it's designed to make it a faster measure for us.
Yeah, they do it really fast. I can't even punch in the calculator how quick they hook that thing, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. And they get the number really, really fast. I'm still over here on my calculator going, what?
Yeah, and they actually have a faster system. They have an electronic tally stick as well. This is really cool. Our shipping department actually uses the electronic tally. And it's linked to a mobile device, and they just press a button for each of the measurements, and it calculates the running total, and it just spits it all into a machine for them.
Nice.
So they can measure 1,000 board foot pack in 5 minutes.
Nice. Okay, that was our 5, and of course this is a YouTube channel, so there's never truly really 5. I've got a couple of bonuses we want to talk about, bonus questions. So the first one is just overall common. What is the difference between a hardwood dealer like here versus your big box stores?
Yeah, so I did 15 years in big box, so I've kind of got a good experience in both. And I worked mostly the lumber department when I was in the big box. So the biggest change I think I noticed was availability. I mean, just the amount of material that we carry here in terms of lumber just blows what I had at the big box stores out of the water. We had an aisle, right? Like we had one side of each side of an aisle had the lumber. And then we had, a couple of little small sections of other types of lumber. But here I've got this giant warehouse full of lumber. I mean, if you walk in, it's almost floor to ceiling, just full of lumber, and all different types of species. At the big box stores, you're really limited to mostly just domestic softwoods, a little bit of domestic hardwood, in a small section somewhere. But here, I mean, the selection is huge. And then probably the most important thing to most people is going to be price. A lot of what we sell it nearly at the wholesale level for everyone that walks in the door, especially sheet goods. Everybody's getting wholesale pricing on sheet goods for us. And that price can be significantly lower. So, and you're getting a better quality because we only use NHLA regulated mills. It gives us consistent quality. We sell things quicker, so it's always fresher batches. You don't have anything sitting on a rack for 6-8 months at a time, because let's be honest, the hardwoods that you see there at the big box have been there for a while usually, because that's not their main business. So that is our main business here. And when you come in, you get a great price. You get knowledgeable people here too, people that have been in the industry who do a lot of their own woodworking. So you get a lot of industry knowledge, not to mention the other customers that are here that have been doing it for 25, 30 years that you can pull information from. So just a whole different experience. But again, if you want bulk orders, we got it. If you go into a big box store and you're looking for bulk hardwoods, you're not going to find that. You're going to find a small selection of S4S hardwood lumber. That's all you're going to get.
Right. Keep that in mind whenever you're thinking about working with sheet goods, your plywoods and stuff. Think about coming here instead of going to your big box stores. I know the hours are different. You know, I understand they're open later, but if you can take the time to come down here, you're going to get a much, much better price. This is where I buy 99% of my lumber for anything that I'm doing, and it is big difference on price, especially if you're doing it, you know, for DIY, whatever you want to do. But when you're doing stuff, if you're doing anything to sell to other people, think about your profit margin, because you can still price that at a retail price, you know, that anybody else would see, but you're actually getting a little bit cheaper price here. Think about that next time you go get your lumber.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to show here in a minute at the end of the video, I'm going to give a tour kind of the facility. So please stick around to the end of the video so you can get a good idea of all the things that they do have here. I won't go over specifics, but I'm just going to give you a general tour of the facility so you can have a good idea. And so the last question, I saved it to last because I know this doesn't affect a ton of people, but what about somebody looking for slabs? They're doing river tables, coffee tables, that type of stuff, and they're kind of wanting those big slabs. Is that also something that's available here?
Yeah, we do that here at Peach State as well. We do sell live edge lumber. Unfortunately, it doesn't go through a grading process, so it's a little bit different in terms of the type of material it is. You have to be more selective. You're going to find much more character typically in those things because, again, it's not going through a grading scale. But our gentleman that brings us our live edge actually does kiln dry all of his material. He flattens it, so we get a good quality. That's the biggest thing about live edge is typically it's going to be small sawmills that are making that. And you don't get a consistent quality. You don't have anybody checking the quality necessarily,
right.
You know, so... but we do get a pretty good selection, and we bring in some really nice quality stuff.
I can attest to that. I've bought many slabs here. One thing I will tell you, and this is for anywhere you go and you buy any kind of slab live edge material, carry a moisture meter with you, because these guys don't know. When they tell them when they bring it in, they tell them, you know, what it was kiln dried to. These guys don't know for sure, so definitely bring your moisture meter with you so you can test the moisture, especially if you're, you know, doing kind of live edge stuff with epoxy or anything like that. Y'all know me, I do a lot of epoxy stuff. That's also an added benefit when you're looking for slabs. If you're doing epoxy work, we like the ugly slabs. Absolutely. It's got the holes, it's got the nastiness, because
character.
Yeah, that looks so much better in epoxy. Well, the good thing is here, that slab is actually going to be cheaper than one that is clean. So keep that in mind whenever you're looking for slabs. Well, that's all I've got, Eric. Man, I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
I answered a lot of the questions that are out there. I mean, that's some real common stuff that we get asked here. So
I get asked a lot of the same stuff too. So I hope it helped you guys at least a little bit. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comment. If I don't know the answer, I can always reach out to Eric. And
we've got to do a part 2. There's always that.
Right. So, all right, I appreciate it. Thank you, Eric, very much.
Thank you.
And see you guys in the next video.